This is the dashboard out of the Daimler. As you can see, it's not in bad condition. Obviously the veneer is starting to break off. What I'm going to do is to actually replace this veneer with new veneer. The original veneer is fairly plain, and when you see the original colour, it's fairly pale as well. Having experienced the woodwork in Jaguars, I've actually bought some walnut Burl veneer, and I'm going to put that Burl veneer onto this dashboard. So the look will be somewhat different, a little bit more exotic than what it was, but I think if you're going to have woodwork, you need to have woodwork that stands out. The original veneer was a straight grained walnut, but I've decided to use a Burl walnut instead. I just like the look of the Burls. When you see a vehicle with a Burl veneer dash, it really looks incredible. So I'm going to use that. Now, when I've researched the process of re-veneering dashboards, I've yet to find one that's used the process that I'm going to use, which is hammer veneering. Now, most dashboards that I've seen re-veneered have used, well, there have been dashboards that have been more flat than this one. This dash actually curves at each end, and it's got a bow along the whole surface of it. So it's not an easy one to use the processes that I've seen where you can actually clamp a veneer on, particularly on the ends where it curves over the end. Also, I don't have the vacuum bags or presses that are sometimes used, so I've decided to go back to a very old process of hammer veneering. When you hammer veneer, in terms of what I've seen and read, you actually don't need a press, you don't need to clamp. The process, when you've finished it, actually has the veneer sticking to the surface. So that's what I'll be doing. In order to hammer veneer, I need to have a few tools. One is a hammer, which is really like a squeegee, which you can make yourself. Fairly simple to make. Little brass section in the front there, and you'll use that to squeegee the veneer onto the surface, and I'll show how that's done when I'm about to do that. The other things you need is because I'm using hide glue, you need something to heat the hide glue up to 140 degrees, which is somewhere around what does it say here? I think it's around 60 degrees Celsius, 140 degrees. What I've done, and you can buy glue pots for that purpose, but what I just bought a cheap baby bottle warmer, and I'm just testing it out now. It seems to heat it up quite well. Little jar instead of a baby's bottle sitting in there, and that should be enough to heat the glue, and I'm ready to do that. The other thing you'll need is a glue brush. Well, I just bought a basting brush from the local supermarket, something to cut the veneer. So I'm pretty well set up. The dashboard because I'm hammer veneering it, I'll be filling in the spaces where the speedos and other instruments, or where the larger ones appear in the dash. Now the reason for that is, as I said before, when you hammer veneer, you put the veneer on and you're actually putting a little bit of pressure on the face of the veneer, and you're moving this hammer across the surface. Now the problem I've got with the holes in the dash is that unless I cut the veneer out to the exact shape of the dash, including the holes, it's very hard to work out where you're pushing down and making sure you don't push down and break the veneer into the holes. So when I'm ready to do this, I'll fill in these holes, not permanently of course, and it'll enable me to have a fairly flat, even surface across the whole thing, so I can actually hammer that on, but I'll get to that later. So this will be the first time I've actually applied veneer in this way. I've never used high glue, I've never used the hammer process. I have used iron-on veneers, that's the only thing I've done. But I'm hoping this process will work quite well. I won't start with the dash, I'll start with the other pieces, and the reason for that is they're flat, so I won't have the problems of coping with this particular dash, which has got more curves on it. So I'm hoping everything will go well. As I say, I'll start with the flat surfaces and get a bit of practice on that, then I'll move on to the actual dashboard itself. Trying to get matching patterns on the door pieces has been a little bit confusing. Now, cutting out the first set wasn't too bad. I just lined up the templates I had onto the surface of the veneer and picked out the feature bits I wanted. So that wasn't so bad. So I just put that down and just cut them out. So that was quite straightforward. The difficulty is actually getting the reverse pattern on the other side of the vehicle. And the only way I've been able to do that, I tried to use the templates I cut out for the other side of the vehicle, but didn't matter what I did, I couldn't quite figure out where the pattern was exactly on the next sheet. And what I ended up doing was to put the pieces of veneer I'd already cut. So this one here is an example, goes for the driver's door, and that's the way I would. Oh, sorry, that's not the driver's door. That goes on the rear of the vehicle, the rear door. Okay, that's the way it would appear. Now, to get the reverse image of that, what I've done is I take this piece of veneer I've cut out, flip it over, and then I've put it on the other sheet of veneer here and lined up the patterns. And it actually works out quite well. When you get the pattern lined up, I mean, you can line it up with particular figure marks on the right hand, left hand and middle. So what I've done, having reversed those pieces of veneer, put them on the other sheet, and I now have the matching pattern on the other side of the vehicle. So it just takes a little bit of thought. To say, it gets a bit confusing, when you're trying to do it, but this way I'll end up with identical patterns left and right side of the vehicle. Alright, this is my attempt at hammer veneering. First try. Glue is ready, it's all heated up. I've got a bowl of warm water. I've got the veneer ready to put on. I'll put the glue onto the substrate, which seems to be the way that the videos go, so I'll just brush some glue on. Make sure I've got enough glue on there. Okay, that's going on alright. So the glue has been warmed up. I've actually got it up to about 145 degrees, but it tends to cool off when you're dipping the brush in and out. I've had to dilute it a little bit to get the right consistency so it flows a little better off the brush. Just make sure I've got no brush bristles on there. This brush is actually dropping bristles all over the place. Damn thing. Bit of a nuisance. Just put a bit more on there. Okay. Right, now put the veneer down over the surface. Make sure it lines up, which it does. Now what I'm going to do, I've seen this done on the internet, not in normal instructions, but they seem to have the veneer wet, and it makes the hammer move a little easier across the surface. So I'll just wet that down. Here's the hammer, and I'll just zigzag that across the surface. The water also seems to lubricate the hammer, so it's moving easier across the top of the veneer. Okay, I'll just put a bit more water down here so I can get this stuck down. I better move reasonably quickly so I can get it before the glue starts to cool off and dry. Okay, a bit more water here. The water's not a problem. I guess the water will also soften the glue, so that's not a bad thing. But certainly that's making it a lot easier to drag that hammer across the surface, and it seems to be bringing a bit of glue to the surface of the veneer. Now that's either coming from underneath, or maybe it's out of the mix I used to actually flatten the veneer, because I did add hide glue to the mix there, so maybe that's also coming out of the veneer now. But it seems to be coming on quite nice. I'm not applying heaps of pressure, but it's firm, and as long as I'm sort of zigzagging a bit, I'm actually covering the whole surface at the top of the timber there. Well, that's the idea anyway. Okay, it appears to be going on alright. Now the other advantage of hide glue too is that if I do make a mistake, I can apply heat with the iron. I've got an old iron there, and that will soften the glue and enable me to do any sort of quick repairs where it may have lifted. But at this stage it seems to be going down nicely. And there we go. My first hammer veneered piece of wood.